68 randomly selected students were asked the number of pairs of shoes they have. Let X represent the number of pairs of shoes. The results are as follows. So here's the number of pairs of shoes, and here's the frequency that that occurs with. So I think it's important that we first pay careful attention to what the table's saying I really want to make that clear for you. So frequency means how many in this case students. How many students? So in other words, 4 students have 4 pairs of shoes. I guess I have more than 4 pair, but I don't wear many more than about 2 or 3. But anyway, so the bottom is 4 here. So I'm going to list this out. I'm going to go 4, 4, 4, 4. There's 4 students that reported that they have 4 pairs of shoes. And then there's 4 students that said they have 5 pairs of shoes. So that's 5, 5, 5, 5. And then there's 10 students, right? Because the frequency is how many students, how frequently that number was reported, that said they have 6 pairs of shoes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 students have 6 pairs of shoes. 4 students have 7 pairs of shoes. Come down here. 6 students have 8 pairs of shoes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. By the way, this isn't necessary. I'm just doing this to make it really clear. You don't have to write all these out. I just want to make it super clear. 7 students have 9 pairs of shoes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 8 students have 10 pairs of shoes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3 students have 11 pairs of shoes. It's a lot of shoes. 5 students have 12 pairs of shoes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 10 students have 13 pairs of shoes. That's craziness. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then finally 7 students have 14 pairs of shoes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 students have 14 pairs of shoes. So this table means all of that. That's the, 68 randomly selected students who were asked the number of pairs of shoes they have. So they asked these 68 students, and that's what they said. A chunk of them said 4 pair, and some said 5 pair, 6 pair, 7 pair, 8 pair, etc. That's what the students said. So again, you don't have to write all that out. You can just leave it up here in the table. That's what the table is saying. It's a summary of all that so that you don't have to write it all out. But if you're at all confused, I wanted to write it out just so you can see it really clearly. Okay, let's go after the questions now. So the first question is the mean. You know what the mean is, right? You add the numbers, and then you divide by n, the total number of numbers, right? You add them all up and divide by how many numbers. So you add the numbers. Let's come down here. Probably be a better way to do it. So the mean, we've done means before. We're going to add up all the numbers, and then we're going to divide by n. n is the total number of values. So you add them all up and divide by how many numbers? Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to add up 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. What's a quick way to do that? 4 times 4, huh? Plus, I'm going to add up 5, 5, 5, 5. What's a quick way to do that? 4 times 5. And I'm going to add up a bunch of these 6s. How many 6s? Well, we could just go back to the table. There's 10 6s, huh? So do you see the quick way to do this is just going to be to multiply? There's 4 7s, right? 4 7s. So the table, I'm going to keep going here, plus Next comes all the 8s. How many 8s? 6 8s. So you should just multiply the numbers in the table. That's telling you how many there are. Bunch of 9s. How many 9s? 7 9s. Plus. Bunch of 10s. How many 10s? 8 10s. Plus 3 11s, as the table says. Plus bunch of 12s. How many 12s? 5 12s. Plus bunch of 13s. How many 13s? 10 13s. Plus, and then a bunch of 14s, 7 14s. And then we have to divide that whole thing, by how many total numbers? Let's just write it right now. Total number of values, which we'll figure out in a second. So, okay, so I'm going to use my calculator, still working on the mean here. I'm going to use my calculator. I'm going to multiply all those numbers in the top. So 10 here. Okay, I'm getting 636 in the top. So that's all the numbers added up. Now, what's the total number of values? Well, how many 4s are there? Well, there's 4 of them. How many 5s are there? There's 4 of them. Where do we get those numbers? Here. It's the frequency numbers, huh? Because that tells you how many students said those number of shoes. So we just add up the frequency numbers. So that's the total of all the frequencies. So if you add up all those frequency numbers, you know, these numbers right here, 4 plus 4 plus, you know, I'm going to add those up right now. Let me see. I'm getting, oh, 68, of course, that was kind of dumb, huh? 68, they told me already. 68 total students. All right, let's divide now. That was a waste. By 68, so I'm getting 9.3529. I don't know how far they want it to round. I'm sure that's good right there. So that's the average. That's the mean. That's the average number of pair of shoes. For all those students, those 68 students who reported how many pair of shoes they have, the average student has 9.3529 shoes. So 9.3529 shoes. All right, so now for the median. Next comes the median. Let's find the median. How do you find a median? The median is the one in the middle, meaning it's the P50. It's the 50th percentile. So we have to find the data value that's 50% of the way along. Now remember how we do percentiles. So to find a percentile, step 1, you take P over 100 times N, because century is 100 years, it's per 100, isn't it? Times N, that is called the locator, helps you locate. So if the locator is a decimal, then you round up and then you find the data value in that spot. So for example, if you have 8.1, round up to 9, and the answer is not 9, the 9 just helps you locate, you then find the 9th value in the list. Okay, and then step 3, so if the locator is a decimal, we round it up and do that. But if the locator is a whole number, you find two values, that spot and the next spot, and you add them and divide by 2. In other words, you find the average of those two values. Okay, so let's do our particular example. We want to find the 50th percentile. So that means, p over 100 times, and p is 50 over 100. That's what 50% means, 50 per 100. Times n is 68. That's our total number of data values, right? Which I should have paid more attention to in the first part. 68, so that's total number of data values. So if you do that, you come out with 34 on your calculator, which is a whole number, isn't it? So we're going here with the whole number. If your locator is a whole number, find two values, that spot and the next spot, add them and divide by 2. So I got to go find that spot, the 34th and 35th values, and then I'm going to add them and divide by 2. So how do I find the 34th and the 35th values? Well, I got to come up to this table and find the 34th and the 35th values. Well, how do you know where that is? Well, you could look at this list here. Let me get rid of all this circling. And we could say, look, see the first 4 values are here, and then this is the next 4 values. So this is up to 4 values. This is up to 8 values. See how I'm just adding up the frequencies? Because when you're done with the 5s, right, there's 4 4s and then there's 4 5s. That's what the table tells us, as we see right here. 4 4s and 4 5s. So at this point we have 8 data values. And then we have 10 6s, right? 10 6s. So at that point we've got 18 data values. And then we have 4 7s. That's what that 4 is. And so add 4 to 18. You've got 22 data values at this point. And then you've got 6 8s. And so add 6. So you're at 28 data values. And then you've got 7 9s. So add 7. What's that? 30. Then now you've got 35 data values. Let me just put these in like this. And then you have 8 10s. So add 8. And you're at 43 data values. I'm just getting a track here in the data values. Then 3 11s. Add 3, you're at 46 total data values. Then 5 12s, add 5, you're at 51 total data values. Then 10 13s, add 10, 61 total data values. And then 7 14s, add 7. That takes us all the way to the 68th data value, which fits. They told us there's 68 data values. Okay, so let's go back down to what we're trying to do here. We're trying to find the 34th and the 35th data values. Well, where's that? Well, the 35th data value is this last 7, right? So as you're looking at these, the 7 9s right here, this one in particular is the 35th value. See how the 7 9s, the group of 9s, those 7 9s end at the 35th data value. So this one here is the 35th data value. So we want the 34th. This must be the 34th and the 35th. They're both 9. 34th and 35th data values are both those last 2 9s. So we go, okay, so it's just 9. You're supposed to add them and divide by 2. That's just going to come out 9, right? It's 18 divided by 2 is 9. The average of 9 and 9 is just 9. Course. So 9 is the median. That's halfway through the data value. And that looks like it, huh? This right here, this value right here, that's halfway through the whole list. So that's the median. That's the middle. 9. Next, they want the Q1. First quartile. Q1 we call it. So how do we find that? So Q1, that's the P25, meaning it's 25th percentile. It's 25% of the way through the data. It's the end of the first quarter. We call it the first quartile. It's the end of the first quarter. So they're basically saying, hey, look at this list of data values. tell us the end of the first quarter. I don't know, I'm guessing somewhere over here with these sixes, I suppose. We'll see. So how do we find the first quartile, the end of the first quarter of all the data? Well, it's the 25th percentile, 25% of the way through the data. So you just use the P over 100 times N formula. So P is 25 over 100, 25 per 100, 25 percentile times N is 68, 68 data values. So, I don't know. What is that? I'm getting 17. So again, that's a whole number. What do you do with a whole number? You take you find 17th and 18th values. Right? So when you have a whole number, like it says right here, if you have a whole number, find two values. That spot and the next spot, add them and divide by 2. Find the average of the 17th and the 18th values. Let's go up and find the 17th and 18th values. So how do we know what it is? Well, the 18th value is the 10 sixes. So this right here, the last 6, that's the 18th value. So this one must be the 17th value. So it's those last 2 sixes are the 17th and 18th values. So, and you add them and divide by 2. That's just going to come out 6. The average of 6 and 6 is 6. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So 6, that's the end of the first quarter. And that looks right, doesn't it? It looks like this right here is 1/4 of the way through the data set. Now, let's find the third quartile, Q3, the end of the third quarter. So, Q3, third quartile, Q3, that's just going to be P75, right? Because at the end of the third quarter, you're at the 75th percentile. You're 75% of the way through the data. At the end of a third quarter of a football game or a basketball game, you're 75% of the way through the game. P over 100 times N. 75 over 100 times N is 68. Use your calculator. I'm getting 51. That's a whole number. And so again, what do you do for a whole number? You take 2 data values. You find that spot, the 51st, and the next spot, 52nd values. Add them and divide by 2. So let's go find the 51st and the 52nd values in the list. There we go. So 51 is, so the 5 12s, the last 12 is the 51st data value. So this one is the 51st, and we're supposed to have 51st and 52nd, right? Yeah, 51st and 52nd. So then the 52nd will be this first 13. That's going to be the 52nd, right? Because again, I got up here, the 51st data value is that last 12. The 5 12s go up to the 51st data value. So there's the 51st, there's the 52nd. So it's 12 and 13. The middle of 12 and 13, of course, is 12.5. We'll go find that formally. So it's 12 and 13. Add them and divide by 2. You get the average of 12 and 13. The middle of 12 and 13, of course, is 12.5. So that's the Q3, 12.5. And that looks like it's 3/4 of the way through the data, right? Third quartile. Right, 12.5 is right after the 12, right before the 13. That's 3/4 of the way through the data, third quartile. All right, at the end now they have a couple of little questions they want us to answer here. What percent of the respondents have at least 6 pairs of shoes? So at least means 6 or more, right? At the least, at the lowest, 6 could be more. So that's 6 or more. So how many have 6 or more? Well, all these, right? 6 or more. So that's everybody except for these 4 and these 4, right? The 4 4s and the 4 5s. Everybody else has 6 or more pair of shoes. So that's all but 8. That's all, that's all but 8 people. have 6 or more. Only 8 people have less than 4 pair of shoes or 5 pair of shoes. I think I'm in that category. So how many is that? Well, there's 68 total people. So that means that's 60 out of 68. All but 8. So that's 60 of the people, right? The 8 on the bottom don't. They have 4 pairs and 5 pairs. So 60 out of 68 do. So divide that in your calculator. 60 divided by 68. I'm getting 0.88235. But then that's a decimal. Let's change it to a percentage. They have a percentage symbol there, so move it 2 places. 88.235%. 88.235% of the respondents have 6 or more pair of shoes. Final question is 75% of all respondents have fewer than how many pair of shoes? Where do we get to 75%? 75%, let me change that to a decimal. 0.75 of always means times. All respondents, there's 68 respondents, huh? So I'm taking those words as they come. 75%, 0.75 of times all respondents, 68. So what's 75% of that? Well, I'm going to do that on my calculator. That's 51. So in other words, they're saying 51 respondents have fewer than how many pair of shoes? Well, that's right here. 51 people have 12 pair of shoes or less. How many pair of shoes? 12. 51 people, which is 75% of the 68 times the 68. 51 people, 75% of all the respondents, have fewer than, not 12, sorry, fewer than 13, because they have 12 or less. So they have fewer than 13. I better be careful there. Fewer. It didn't say 12 or less, it said fewer, so fewer than 13 pair of shoes. That's the real answer. Fewer than 13 pair of shoes. That was a tricky question. So that was a long and difficult question. There we go.